Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Jeff with Fluent American checking in. We're going to be taking a look at another IELTS essay, this time a task one. I have not spent much time looking at this prompt because I want it to be fresh, kind of simulating a test experience. But again, this is an academic chart, so we have a diagram today. You can take a look at the first link that will take you to our actual essay in the Google Doc. If you can't see it, be sure to let me know, post it in the comments, and I'll try to see what I can do about that. Also, some quick reminders if these kind of essay analysis and things like that, if you find them helpful, please be sure to subscribe. Also, join our Facebook group. We have a writing group with some regular prompts and things like that. I've included a link there, as well as a link to getting your own essays checked if you're trying to prepare for the test. All right, so let's take a look at our essay. Okay, and again, as I go through this, as always, if you have questions, comments, anything that you are not sure about, please make sure to leave a message in the chat box. I will be checking that regularly as we go through our prompt here. Okay. So again, ideally, we try to get this done in about 20 minutes. If you're taking the test and you find that your task one is challenging, sometimes they give slightly harder task ones. Sometimes they know that. So what they tend to do if that happens is give you a slightly easier task two. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you have a hard task one and a hard task two, but hopefully that doesn't occur for you. In general, you want to try to finish your task one in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes maximum, but really 20 because you don't want to take time away from your task two. So this time we're looking at a diagram of brick manufacturing. Okay, so we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 7 pictures more or less. And we need to describe this. These diagrams can be tricky because in some ways it's helpful because they give you all the information, right? They give you every single step. Um, so what I see happen for some students is they finish describing it in like 100 words and they're like, what else do I need to say? That's something that we'll be kind of paying attention to make sure that we're able to write as many words as we need. Key thing is also going to be vocab. We need to mention every single thing that they highlight here. Okay, so if you get a diagram like this, every word that they write, you probably want to have in your task response. Okay. I generally start with an overview. Okay, I usually use my overview as my intro. Okay, so let's see what we have here. So overall, brick manufacturing requires about 1, 2, 3. Depending if you take the sand and water as a separate step. I'm not. I'm going to combine it with the cutting. So I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About 7 steps. So overall, brick manufacturing requires about 7 steps. Starting with digging the clay. We'll use clay later, actually, to start with digging the earth. Maybe instead of starting with, maybe like including digging the earth, molding and heating it to the correct temperature, and packing it to be sent where it is needed. So that's my quick overview. I'm trying not to use too many words just from the prompt just yet, or from the diagram, because I want to save that for my paragraphs. Just kind of summarizing what's going on in the whole picture. The overview for a diagram at times can be tricky because all of the information is already there, right? But I usually try to mention for a diagram, I try to mention how many steps, I try to highlight the first and the last steps, especially, and then kind of just mention some of those other steps that are in the middle. And I think that can work fine for your overview. All right. So let's begin. So, like to start, an excavator, digger. I know in the US they're also called excavators. An excavator, digger is required to collect clay from the ground. Okay, so I mentioned my first step. Okay, so we got the digger collecting clay. Um, it's raw material. I'll use clay as raw material. Is then put onto a metal grid, sifted over rollers, conveyor belt. So just a couple of vocab things there in case you're not familiar with them. Um, so the metal grid you have the picture of that. Sifted is like when you take material and you kind of like shake it like this to try to get all the parts that you don't need to go down. So, for instance, if you are looking for gold in a river, maybe you'll grab some of the dirt and then you'll sift it to get some of the water and the dirt off of the gold. So the gold will be bigger. It will stay um, sifted. So you'll still have that, and all the things you don't want will leave. Okay. So that's what sift is over rollers in a conveyor belt. The conveyor belt is that basically that what the rollers are part of, that thing that kind of moves in a direction. For instance, when you go to a grocery store, um, the conveyor belt is where you put all your products that the cashier scans. Okay, that's called a conveyor belt. Okay, so that's what we see there. Hmm. Also, want to check really quick my word count just for this current section. Okay, so currently we're at about 61 words, including our overview. Okay. Now, being a native speaker, I may go slightly over the word count. Keep in mind, 150 words is the minimum. There's no maximum. Okay, so if you're able to write 200 words, I have some students that are able to write 250 words in about the 20 minutes that you're given. That's great. Go for it. If you can write that much, I would encourage it. I think that's great. If you're not able to write that, then at least get the 150. Okay, do what you need to do for your writing, but there's nothing wrong if you go over. You only get penalized if you don't have enough words. Okay, fundamental grid. So continuing, so we have raw materials put on a metal grid and sifted over rollers in a conveyor belt. Sand and water, then added before um, any cutting actually occurs. Okay, I'm probably going to make a break right there. So I've introduced the concept of cutting. I want my next body paragraph to continue with this cutting. Okay. Cutting, maybe like forming the individual bricks in reference to the cutting can be done in one of two ways. And again, I'm trying to drag out the word count a little bit because, again, we want to write 150 words. So I want to show you a technique that you can use in case you're having a hard time getting those 150 words. What I'm doing, I'm slowing down. Forming the bricks can be done in one of two ways. Okay, because we can see in the chart there's the wire cutting and there's the molding, right? Okay. A wire cutter can slice out bricks to the shape and size that is desired. Okay, so that's our first way. We have the wire cutter. Another option involves using a mold to shape each. Okay. All right, so we just mentioned both of our ways. Despite these differences, the remaining steps are, or we could say the remaining steps do not have um, as many variations. So again, I'm just trying to buy some time, buy some words. So again, this is to show you in case you're struggling with word count, what are some options that you have. Okay, so I'm going to try to wrap this up in about 30 to 50 words for the remainder. Okay. All right. Drying oven is then used 1 to 2 days, 24 to 48 hours. You know, the hours are related to days. So I'm just going to use 1 to 2 days instead of 24 to 48 hours. Okay. Just to show a little bit of variation in the word choice, but still expressing the same ideas. Afterwards, bricks are sent to the kiln, which ranges from moderate 200 to 980 degrees Celsius to a peak of 170 to 1300 degrees Celsius. Quick note. So these numbers with dashes. So for instance, you see 200 980. You also see 870 1300. If you're counting word counts, if words are connected by dashes, IELTS usually is going to count those as single words. Okay, just a heads up. Okay, because they're joined together. So afterwards, the bricks are sent to the kiln, which ranges from a moderate 200 to 980 degrees Celsius to a peak of 870 to 1300 degrees Celsius. For staying in where are they staying? In a cooling chamber. 2 to 3 full days. We're getting ready for our ending here. So let's take a look at our word count again. So we're about 163. I'm going to try to wrap this up in about 20 words or so. Ideally, we're going to get this task one under 200. The bricks sent to the kiln, which range from moderate 280 degrees to peak 87 for staying in chamber for 2 to 3 full days. So after being baked, the bricks are ready for packaging. Packaged and shipped and sent out for delivery on semis, semi trucks. They have a couple different names. You can just say they can be sent out for delivery. They can be sent out on semis. They can be sent out on semi trucks. They can be sent out on 18 wheelers. However you're feeling, use what you need for your word count. All right. And I think that is where I will stop for that task. Let's just make sure we're doing everything that we need. Okay, so this finishes about 183 words, so about 30 words, more or less, over. For a lot of my students, that's relatively realistic. I also included some things here that may or may not be necessary. Again, I wanted to show some ways that you can slow your writing down and add some words in case that's something that you're struggling with. Um, can Besides that, make sure we're using all the vocab we need. Digger we mentioned, clay we mentioned. Okay. Metal grid, roller. Okay. Metal grid, rollers. Also add a conveyor belt ourselves. Sand and water. So make sure we're mentioning sand and water. Sand and water is mentioned. Great. Okay. Wire cutter. Okay. Wire cutter. We have. Okay. Using a mold. Mold. Quick note that in American English, that'll just be spelled with MOLD. Okay. In British English, they'll add that U. Then we have the drying oven for 1 to 2 days, 24, 48 hours. We then have the kiln next. So 2 kilns, the moderate one, then the high one, then the cooling chamber. Ooh, glad I checked. So I would add in a cooling chamber. I didn't have cooling. Okay. Since they specifically say cooling chamber, I would suggest using that word. Great. After being baked, they're ready for packaging. Once packaged, they can be shipped and sent out for delivery. And we mentioned delivery. Great. So it looks like we're mentioning all the words here. Okay. Notice also I didn't need to rephrase the question. Okay, I just started with the overview. I think the overview is a fine way to start. I wouldn't waste time just repeating the question. The examiner already has the question. And if you choose to use it, you run the risk of using some weird grammar, unnatural grammar, or changing your vocab in a way that doesn't sound as good, doesn't sound as natural. Okay, so I want you to try to avoid that where possible. But beyond that, I think this task one looks pretty complete. Okay. Checking the chat. I'm not seeing any questions, but if you do have questions after this, be sure to post them in the comments. Again, check out our Facebook group. You can also send me a message there. You can check out our website at fluentamerican.com. Also, of course, if this content is helpful for you, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it. It lets me know that this type of content you are looking for. My name is Geoff with Fluent American. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Hope you have a good day, have a good night, have a good afternoon, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.